All right, we are live. Welcome everybody to the Ranting and Rolling podcast. It is January 7th, July 7th, 2020. You'll have to forgive me. My co-hosts have thrown me off by, getting me laughing, but my brain's all scattered, but that's cool. I am Crash, the Odd Crapple. This series that you're going to see over the next couple of weeks is my effort to pay tribute to Chester Bennington and Linkin Park. If some of you don't know out there that are watching, this month is marks the third anniversary of the passing of Chester, specifically on July 20th. And then in October, when this series concludes, it will be the 20th anniversary of the debut album Hybrid Theory that they released. So I wanted to kind of approach this topic because I think we're at a point socially where we need to find ways to connect with each other. And ever since I was little, the way that I've always seen people connect without any animosity is through music. And whether they like, the same music for different reasons, it doesn't matter. So I wanted to find out what the overall message of music is, because I think the message of music is unity. Because what I have learned over the years is they say that music is a universal language, regardless of what you're saying. So today I have two of probably the most amazing people I used to, see probably almost every other weekend, I think. Because, yeah, something like that. Mike and Ian from the Grin, or what I knew when I was in my 20s as Black Tooth Grin. They are a local band up in upstate New York. And when I was in my drinking days, I saw them frequently in the town that I grew up in. So I thought that it would be perfect to have them both on to start this series off, because if you think about the type of music that Linkin Park put out, it's a little bit on the harder side. And for me personally, I think the heavier music has more emotion to it. That's just a personal preference. So I figured that having Mike and Ian on would be a perfect, introduction to this series. And I will say that at the end of this series in October, if it goes well, I would like to have them on the final episode just to close everything out. So that's something to look forward to. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves and tell you guys, what they want you to know about them. So I'll let Mike go first.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, man. It's good to see you again.
Absolutely. It's been too long. Do you realize it's been, I think, 14 years?
Something like that.
Yeah, because I'm now 35, and I think I met you guys when I was either 21 or 22. So it's been 14 years.
Nice, man. Well, I'm Mikey. I play in the Grin. And if you told me when I was 25 that I'd still be going with Ian jamming at 42, I'd say you were crazy. But I've been a musician my whole life. I'm an educator. It's my side gig, and it's just something that's always been a part of my life. And I enjoy it to this day. And as soon as it stops being fun, I won't do it anymore.
Ian?
Yeah. Thanks. It's great to see you. It's good to see you as well. I'm Ian. I've also been a musician my whole life. I started out as a classical pianist and jazz pianist, and somewhere around the age of 13, I realized that the ladies don't think you're very cool unless you got a guitar in your hand and you're playing something other than Beethoven. So I started playing bass in a band just because they needed a bass player, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But I've always played bass pretty much since I was 13 years old, and now keyboards have become somewhat cool again. So you'll see me bring out the keyboards from time to time, and I'm still playing with Mikey at 44. It's hard to believe that we're still doing something musically. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm shocked, but I'm, if you had asked me when I was 28, when we started the Grin, or the Black Tooth Grin, if we'd still be playing together when I was 44, I'd say, probably not. But here we are. We're still making music and, doing a lot more studio work now personally, in light of COVID. So, and Mikey's been in the studio too. So the two of us have probably recorded more in the last month and a half than we have in the last 10 years. So
that's true. Hey, Ian, tell them about your little venture with Leon.
Oh yeah. Well, Leon, who you knew in the band, was a guitar player and sung all those beautiful harmonies, right?
Mm-hmm.
He and I have been doing a lot of recording together. So, essentially doing heavier versions of, cover songs, like we recently did a heavy version of On the Turning Away by Pink Floyd. Well, not that heavy, but heavier.
Mm-hmm.
And it got over 16,000 views in the first, week. So it was featured. If you looked up Pink Floyd, it came up as number 6 on the list for a while.
Oh, wow.
So it blew our minds, but, the first video I ever created too. I've never created a music video, and it's the first one I ever did. So it was fun. We're having a great time. Mikey, Leon, and I are going to do a song too. We'll probably get that done this summer, I'm sure.
That's awesome.
It's fun.
It's going to be tough to follow up that one though. Check out that version. It's amazing. It really is. Leon.
Thanks, man.
So going back to as early as you can remember, I know we're all kind of, losing some years here, but as early as you can remember, what got you into music, and did you ever have aspirations of going mainstream into the music industry, or have you always just kind of been comfortable playing locally up there?
Personally, my mother was she worked in the law office. She was a secretary, but she was a trained singer, and she was a soprano. So she sang a lot of weddings and unfortunately funerals, and it was always her side gig. And she was always singing in the house. My sister's a music teacher. She's 8 years older than I am, and it's always been a part of my life in the house. And I was never trained like Ian. And I just watched my brother play air drums. I picked up the drumsticks, and I could just play, and it's been something I've been going with my entire life. I've been rolling with it, no pun intended, my entire life. So,
So what made you essentially emulate Phil Collins in the sense of coming out from behind the drums? Like, why? What makes you the metal version of Phil Collins?
Leon and I were writing some songs in his garage. I was drumming, and he was playing guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And our original drummer Rick gave Leon a call and said, I want to start a cover band. And Leon's like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And I'm like, yeah, go ahead. That's cool. I'll come watch you guys play. That's awesome, So they started jamming, and they needed somebody just to sing to fill the spot. And I'm like, I went to karaoke with Leon and sang "Living Color, Cult of Personality" after a few beverages. And Leon says, you got to come down. I'm like, get out of here. So he says, just at least come down till we found you a singer. And they never found a singer.
Well, I mean, based on me hearing you, I can understand why they probably wouldn't want to.
It was rough in the beginning. Ask Ian. Then Ian came down. I read Ian, Leon, and Rick were in a band together. And I was looking at their website, and it said that Ian played bass, and we were looking for a bass player. I said, call Ian. And because they always said what kind of a great guy he was.
Yeah.
So we called Ian, and he said, yeah. And we all hit it off, and that's how we started. And AJ came aboard, and it was just.
Yeah, that's about my marriage started going downhill right there.
And I played in the bands with AJ when we were in high school together. So I was in a band at 15 with AJ called Flood, and we've been playing together since we were 15.
Oh, wow.
And he was in an original band called Soul Crutch that kind of they kind of lost their momentum. And we said, you always got a spot with us, man. He came and joined us, and the 5 of us just went at it.
That's awesome. What got you into did you guys instantly jump into like the bar scene up there, or was there like a progression into the bar scene?
Well, I got to say, I think Mike and I have been into the bar scene since we're 21. But,
wow.
Give or take a few.
At the time we started, the music scene was kind of pathetic around, at least in our area. There wasn't a lot of music in, certainly not a lot of hard rock music or metal, definitely no metal music playing out live anywhere. There were a couple clubs, one of which was Saratoga Winners, which is one of the only places you can ever go to see a band that wasn't going to play jazz or lounge singer type music or classic rock. So you'd have to go there to see those kind of bands. So when we started out, we hit the scene just in time, and we had some good relationships with some of the local club owners and bar owners that were looking to grow their live music scene. And, we came up with a way that the bars could, afford us, but we'd still do okay. And played, and we had a lot of contacts. In the first few shows, we had a lot of people turn out. And I think word got around. Bars said, wow, if you hire a band that plays something other than classic rock, you'll actually get a crowd too. And we got a bit of a reputation. I don't know if it was good or bad in all cases, but bars knew that if they booked us, they can count on a decent crowd. And we brought people who would also keep the bar pretty damn busy too. So,
yeah. And in our early days too, I mean, we're talking a little bit before MySpace blew up. I mean, I got to give a lot of credit to Johnny Miller, who was our original drummer's brother, Rick's brother, who he took us under his wing. He hired us to play a graduation party. And he's like, oh my God. So he took us under his wing, and, we were taking out ads in the paper, putting up flyers on cars, old school. And I actually enjoyed that a lot more, but what really happened was, I think we created an atmosphere. A lot of people became friends, and we became the place to hang out, regardless of where we're playing. And, we'd pick up, we picked up enough people too, because we could play a little bit. And it became really like a big family that went into these places. Like we had a lot of people from Amsterdam come to Glens Falls, Cobleskill, and it grew like that. So
it was a lot like a family, Mike. I think that's a good way to put it. We kind of built a family of people who had the same kind of interest, the same interest in music. And the funny thing was, we had a lot of people that would follow us around and be part of the Grin family that didn't like heavy metal music at all. They listened to gangster rap and hip hop or soft rock, but they enjoyed coming out to see us because they just have a great time. And they started getting into music, getting in, and they'd be meeting friends. There are people who met their wives and husbands at our shows. There's even a couple proposals, I think, that happened live at our shows. Yeah. So, it is quite wild. I don't know if any of them are still together, but
as far as, because obviously there were bands that were musically in the same vein as you guys, like the heavier music. What do you think made you guys stand out like you did? Because I remember going to your shows, and for me being in a wheelchair, especially for like a venue like Hot Shots, Hot Shots in and of itself was difficult for me to navigate because it was cut up very weird. But how do you explain, or can you explain even, the attraction that people had to your approach to music that brought in such a crowd? Like, I don't know, I mean, I only saw you at Hot Shots, but I'm guessing that you had those type of crowds several other places as well.
I think Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think really it's two things. One, the band got along like we were brothers, and so we were tight in our friendship, but we were also tight when we played. We really kind of knew we can kind of anticipate what each other was about to do, and kind of lock into each other live. I also think a lot of bands that you go to see, especially in our genres, there's a singer, and then there's the rest of the band. And I think that in our band, just about every member of the band has been a singer at some point in another band. So we really worked hard on vocals, to keep the vocals and harmonies and things that you would hear on an album, but you wouldn't hear live when bands would do it, because you'd have the lead singer singing the song, but then in the studio they did all the backing vocals and everything. And so those bands couldn't even recreate their own songs live. And we focused on recreating not just the music, but preserved all the same tunings, even used some of the similar guitars, and put all the vocals in there, just like you heard on the album, and really worked hard to make sure harmonies and vocals were present. So, you know, but Mike, add to that. If you...
Well, he's 100% right. Like there were four guys that were singing, and arguably I was the worst singer out of the four. I mean, Leon.
I don't know about that.
Leon has had an incredible voice. You know, AJ has a great ear and could sing, and he's the guy that brought the, you know what I mean? And Ian could sing, and now even Alex, our new lead guitar player, can sing. You know, so I think that had a lot to do with it, and I think a lot of it had to do with we had a lot of fun. I mean, we tried to embrace everybody and get everybody involved. I know what I wanted to feel like when I went out to see a band, and I wanted everybody to have a good time. You know, because if everybody's having fun and it looks like we're having fun, and like Ian said, we get along to this day. You know, and everybody brings something different to the table too, and it just AJ's the one that keeps us in line, because he ain't not. You know what I mean? Seriously, it's the truth. And you need somebody like that. He's great at the business aspect of it. You know, Ian and I are the nutty ones. You know. And it just works. It just worked. I can't really explain it. I mean, we've all played in different bands, but it just feels different when we play in this band.
A lot of bands just, you know, they don't look like they're. I've seen, and I love live music, and I support a lot of local bands. And one thing I noticed that, you know, when I saw some local bands play, they didn't look like they're having fun. You know, they would just kind of stand there and hold their instruments, and some incredible musicians. But they didn't look like they're having any fun at all, and that doesn't translate to a crowd who wants to come out and drink and have a good time. So we all get up there and we drink just as much, you know, as everyone in the crowd, and just absolutely have a great time. Move around at the end of the show. I mean, we're exhausted, and you know, we're still playing shows, not as many, but we're moving around just as much now as we did, maybe more than we did in our 20s. But now it just takes us a few months to recover. So.
I know what direction we're moving in as far as, you know, bands having drinks with their fans. I know what direction we're moving in, but I'm going to steer away from that a little, just because I want to know one thing. The one thing that I think was very prominent amongst the local band scene up there is a lot of the bands would come out to see each other. Like if one band wasn't playing, they would come out and see another band that was playing. So would you say that at least, you know, say 14, 15 years ago, would you say that there was a strong camaraderie, or at least a noticeable camaraderie between the bands themselves, like each band, as much as there was the bands and their fans?
Yeah, I would think so. You know, I when way back in the day, and even today, I mean, there was a band in our area called Max Violet. Mike Hayes and Chris DeLorme, God rest his soul. I mean, we used to go out and see those guys. They started up around the same time we did, and they used to come out to see us. I remember going out to see 10 Year Vamp. And by the way, the relationship with Max Violet still transcends today, because they're Madhouse now and they're doing really well. And you know, it's just, I enjoy live music, you know, and you got no choice. There's a mutual respect, and you just enjoy watching somebody else do good things. You know what I mean? When you become friends, you know, we jam together sometimes, and it has to be that way, in my opinion. You know?
I think what I loved about seeing all of the bands kind of support each other is you guys genuinely loved seeing each other succeed in the same, you know, in the same arena,
Yeah.
essentially.
How about like another band too, Cell 213?
Oh my God. They're
We used to see those
like,
guys all the time, you know?
there's nobody crazier on stage than Moses. Like, I don't know where that energy came from. Like, he was like he was like at least 5 12-year-olds with ADHD. I don't know how he did it.
We stole their drummer.
That's wow. We didn't steal them. They stopped.
Yeah,
But
no,
yeah,
no. I'm saying we love those guys, and my whole point is we got to know them so well that when we needed a drummer, it was almost an automatic. We knew who we wanted. We knew who was available, and we already had a good relationship. So
Yeah.
and we've exchanged musicians. We're like a musician exchange program around here. There have been many times where we've had other drummers fill in for us. We've had our own members of our band have filled in for other bands when somebody couldn't make it. So it's like like substitute teachers, Mike, right?
Yeah.
But we're subbing in.
Well,
We've even done projects and shows where we just
Toys.
have like Misfit Toys or Move or all these weird names we come up with. But there'll be two guys from this band, two guys from this band, and some random dude from this other band, and just put together a show and play and bring out the crowds from both bands, put them together in the same room, and it's just great. It just just share our music. The Amsterdam area, I got to say, who would have thought in Amsterdam you'd have so many musicians?
Yeah.
I've never seen a more concentrated supply of excellent musicians in all my life than I've seen in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
It's got to be better per capita than Seattle and some of these places.
And honestly, there are a ton of great musicians around here. I mean, you got Poor Dead Molly, you got some great original bands like Within the Fire, Inertia. Scott Featherstone's one of the best singers around here. It's unbelievable. If you close your eyes, you think this guy was Dio. Unbelievable singer.
wow.
Jason Caldwell, another fantastic singer. And we've got that band band's called That 80s Band. Mike Bruce has a project. They're unbelievable.
Yeah.
And they do 80s pop, and they put on a show, and it's just they're professionals, and it's like it's cool to see. It's really cool to see. There's a lot of talent around here,
So going back to what you guys were saying about how you helped each band helped each other out when a member needed to sub in or sub out or what have you. Are you basically saying that it was like a gigantic upstate music orgy?
Kind of.
Times.
Kind of,
Going back to what mentioning 10-year vamp, or Mike, after I talked to you about doing this episode, I actually looked up Deb Gabrione, the lead singer for 10-year vamp, and it looks like she's doing some solo stuff now.
She did. She is. I walked into a bar in Schenectady, and she was playing acoustic with somebody. And I didn't have a hat on, and my beard's a lot grayer, so you didn't recognize. We were only in there for a couple minutes, so I didn't see. But she still sounds great. She still does really well. And, she's still a very great, excellent performer.
Yeah. I definitely before this series concludes, I want to get her on stream with me, just because the one thing that I didn't that was rare for our area was female singers, and I think that there's a certain level of intensity in a female's voice that no guy could ever achieve. And I love how unique each female singer I saw sounded. It always blew me away.
Right. Well, I mean, we were talking about the Cranberries before we started. I mean, how could you be any more emotional?
Right.
I mean, I'm not a big fan of like Hailstorm and things like that, but I'm a big fan of like Pat Benatar. I love Heart. You can't replicate some of the things that they did in Heart.
Right.
And their whole catalog is unbelievable.
The the video that I was telling you guys I was watching about the guy from Ireland who was watching the Bad Wolves version of Zombie, he was actually remarking on how unique Dolores O'Riordan's accent was. Even for an Irish woman, her accent was still very unique. And he said that he had kind of wished that Bad Wolves had tried that, but he said that he also understood why they didn't, because they didn't want to mimic her.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think when you cover a song in a bar situation, like kind of like what we do, we try to do as best as possible to replicate. But I think when you record a cover as a professional act, you got to do something your own. You know, and I think I really respect what Bad Wolves did. In fact, Dolores was supposed to sing backup on that song. And
she
the
died.
day they're supposed to be in the studio, it was a day she took her own life. So
yep, she died on my birthday. Yeah, so that was a hard pill to swallow, because I grew up listening to the Cranberries. So to find out that she passed away on my birthday, it definitely shook me a little. And I still hadn't really, and I honestly still haven't. At that point, I still hadn't really come to terms with the fact that Chester had passed. And then, 6 months later, I hate to hear that Dolores passed. It's like, okay, what's going to be the third shoe that drops? Because, you can only take so much when you're so emotionally connected to something.
Well, I mean, think of the singers that we've seen die. I mean, I wasn't a big Nirvana fan. We got Kurt. Lane Staley was one of my all-time favorite singers. I mean, you want to talk about somebody that's unique, and Chris Cornell before Chester, right? You know what I mean? I mean, Soundgarden's unbelievable.
Right, and if you look at most bands that were popular in the late 80s and in the 90s, there's almost no singers left. I mean, from the 90s, you got Eddie Vedder, might be the only surviving key 90s hit maker from, but then you even look at some of the 80s bands. I mean, look at all the singers that have passed away, even just from the 80s bands. I mean, just singers in general. And I know it's your show, but I would love to ask the question, put it out there. What's happening? I mean, I know we're in there's a mental health crisis in our country. But it really seems to be affecting musicians, especially singers, and singers when they hit their 40s and 50s, especially. I don't know what's going on there, but there's definitely something to study. What's causing this?
I think that emotions run deep, no matter what they are, and I think that creative, energy is the right word to use. That, I mean, it derives from somewhere, and it comes from places that we don't know. That you just have to reach in your soul and find it. And I think that a lot of talented people have mental health issues. And I think that their creativity is an outlet for that. And I think as time passes and they're not comfortable in their own skin, they don't know what to do with themselves after the fact that their career is over. I don't want to say over, but not as relevant as it was, maybe. I don't know. I don't know, but
I think social media has been brutal too. I mean, you look at the latest Linkin Park album was completely trashed online. They were very critical of the songwriting and the vocal performances, and but I think that it's always been like that. Bands put out albums that are not as good as one before, but now the singers, the bands, they read these comments by the thousands, and they can be very harsh. And I think some musicians are very affected by the negative comments. It must be tough to be like on the top of your game, selling millions of albums, and now you can't sell albums anymore because everything's online, and everyone's a lot more critical and public about it. And at the same time, you're getting older and you can't perform like you used to. It's got to be tough.
As a longtime fan of Linkin Park, I think that there are songs that I don't connect with as as strongly, but I still think that overall I connect with them. So I've never really had a negative critique for them. But then you go into the band that got me listening to music, Guns N' Roses, and I mean, I will support Axl Rose until the day I die. But if I ever meet him, I need to know to shut my mouth about Chinese democracy. Because as long as that album took to come out, it should have been a masterpiece because for all of his faults, Axl Rose is still a perfectionist, and that album was trash.
Well, it's not. That wasn't Guns N' Roses, in my opinion.
No, it wasn't.
Right.
I guess the reunited lineup is working on new music, and thankfully Axl still has his voice.
He does.
I got to see him for the first time in 2017. I got to see them in North Carolina for the reunion tour, and it was easily one of the greatest shows I've seen. But I wonder what their music is going to sound like, because when a band is on broken up or on hiatus for as long as they were, I think as a listener, I can't speak as a musician because I'm not one, but I think as a listener, if a band is out of the scene for that long, we still have a general kind of idea as to what we want them to sound like. And if they don't sound like that when they come back, it's like, okay, who the hell is this? And where did Ian go?
He had to plug in.
Oh, okay.
He had to plug in. Listen,
okay, yeah.
I get what you're saying, because I told you I was going to reference this a lot, but I'm a huge Metallica fan. And I remember everybody, when the Black album came out, everybody's like, whoa, they sold out, blah, 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 blah. And I still loved it. But
oh yeah, one of the best albums.
Try watching your favorite band before the internet and all this stuff come out with Until It Sleeps, after wanting them to come back with And Justice for All. I was like, what the hell is this? And it took me years to love that album. Now I appreciate it,
Yeah, and I think the longer it takes for a band to put out an album, it doesn't mean that the album's going to be good. And there's very few examples where a band's taken 10 years, 15 years to put out an album and it's been a really good one. Tool, for example. In my opinion, I love Tool musically. They're a great band, but the latest release, I was just disappointed, I guess, because it was that they've been writing it apparently for 10 years. And not just a part, they were working on it for a very long time, and musically, it's good, but there's not a single song on there that I think is gonna catch fire on the radio.
No,
like some of their older stuff. But that's just one example, and bands reinvent themselves, and sometimes the reinventions, it just doesn't work.
Yeah. Mike, I want to test your memory to see just how much Metallica, or just how much about Metallica just to kind of have fun. I was watching a video before we linked up, and it gave me a little tidbit about, because it was I believe the video was called 10 songs that artists wrote that they absolutely hate. And can you name the one song that James Hetfield absolutely despised, that they only played one time, and it was under duress because they had to play the entire album front to back?
Yeah.
Do you remember? What's?
It's Escape from Ride the Lightning.
Son of a bitch! I was hoping to trip you up.
Yeah, man, he hated it. The other reason I know that is I got a bootleg from '94, and they did a Ride the Lightning, Kill 'Em All medley, and Kirk started playing the riff to that song, and James was like, looking at him, give him dirty looks and stuff. And I read into it, and it's Escape from Ride the Lightning, no doubt. It's
I
got
guess
a cheesy chorus.
I guess after they wrote it, it took them 30 years to perform it. Do
Yeah,
you remember, or do you remember where the first time was that they performed it?
I believe I do. I think it was the Orion Festival. I
You're
want to say.
right.
Yeah.
You're right. It's absolutely where it was.
Yeah, I'm a big
Um,
Metallica guy. I ain't gonna lie. I stand. And the ironic part is, Ride of Lightning's probably my second favorite Metallica album. I love
really.
it. Fantastic. Yeah, Justice is number one, but yeah.
Um, Along that same vein, what do you think when you hear that a musician, either solo or part of a band, what do you think when you hear that one of their most popular songs is something that they have grown to hate?
I mean, I would assume that that's just. I mean, a
When you
lot of
think about it, right?
a lot of popular
What?
songs are very commercial, and a lot of guys,
Yeah,
Yeah.
So maybe that's a reason.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I think repetition. When you think about it, the most
Yeah.
popular songs are ones that are played all the time,
That's true.
and you got to get sick of it after a while. I mean, there's not a single song that I can think of that I've ever heard that I can play over and over and over again for 24 hours straight.
Right.
It's got to get fatiguing.
yeah. One of the other songs on the video that I was watching surprised me because it's also a fan favorite. Don't Stop Me Now by Queen. I guess Brian May hated that song because the way he interpreted the lyrics that Freddie wrote was that it was very hedonistic, and he said that it seemed very inappropriate for Queen to be singing something like that, which really shocked me because I don't. I mean, that goes into what I wanted to discuss as far as the reason that a songwriter writes a song versus the interpretation that the listener gets. So I'm curious if you're familiar enough with Don't Stop Me Now, can you recall what your kind of idea of that song is? And do you see where Brian May could be right?
I'm not familiar with the song, man. I got to be honest with you. I'm sorry.
I mean, I'm familiar with the song, but I don't know. Not that familiar with it.
It's just it's weird because part of the reason one of the reasons that I wanted to start this series was because, and Mike, I think I told you this, Serge from System of a Down, he recently came out in an interview criticizing one of his bandmates because, unfortunately, they had a different political view than, I guess, the rest of the band. And I guess Sir, in an interview, in an independent solo interview, Serge lashed out at this band member and said, "There's a specific song from the early days," and he said, "I don't know how you can have the political views that you have and still be comfortable performing, this particular song." I forget what song it was, but that kind of made me think, does every band member have to have the same interpretation or connection to a song that the songwriter does?
Ian, what do you think? I mean, I have an opinion, but
Yeah, I think sometimes we get too caught up in lyrics, and I'll be completely honest with you. I don't listen to lyrics very often in music. I know it sounds horrible and idiotic sounding for a musician to say they don't get. I'm not a poet. I never have been. I'm not an author. Well, I do have a book, but it's not very good. I have. I hone into the melody, what the song is carrying emotionally just from the music. I mean, I love instrumental music. I love I love the solo parts in songs, the breakdowns, and I very very rarely do I find myself caught up in lyrics in a song. But that being said, I mean, if you're a band that's putting out a political album, you know, and let's face it, there are lots of political albums out there.
Oh yeah.
To be making those statements and not have everybody in the band on board, it's got to be a little awkward. But then again, I mean, if I'm playing bass in front of or guitar or drums in front of 20,000 people 5 nights a week, I don't really give a shit what they're saying in front of the microphone. You know what I mean? I'm getting a paycheck and I'm playing. So I kind of get that too.
But the thing is too, I'm sure the music was done in the song before he wrote the lyrics.
Yeah,
Probably,
that makes sense. I mean, it depends on what situation we're talking about. I mean, we did a couple of originals. AJ wrote the lyrics, and we worked them out together. But I mean, how can you discount what your band member put into the song? I mean, the guy put his spin on it, and the song wouldn't sound the way it did if those 4 guys didn't write it together.
Right. This is kind of not in the vein of music, but it's in the vein of what we're talking about. There's a myth. I don't know if it's actually true because Michael Jordan has actually said it's not true. There was a thing that Michael Jordan supposedly said in the 90s when he came back from playing baseball and rejoined the Bulls. I guess there was a book that was being written about him, and for whatever reason, I guess there was some political election happening in Chicago at the time, and for whatever reason, the person writing the book about Michael asked him who he supports, and I guess historically Michael's been very apolitical or just doesn't discuss his political leanings. And the guy asked him why, and I think he exposed his political leanings by saying this, although he claims he didn't say it. The statement that is going around that he supposedly said is "even Republicans buy Nike," and so it makes me wonder, when a songwriter writes a song, do they expect the listener to connect with it in the same way that they connected with it from writing it? Because I think with art, because obviously music is an art form, I think with art you have to allow each individual to connect with it in their own way based on their own, experiences. So when it comes to like a song that you guys are connected to, if you heard the lead singer of the band or the songwriter come out and say, "Oh, it's supposed to be interpreted this way," would it sour your connection to that song, or would it help you understand them and why they wrote it while still maintaining your individual connection to it?
It depends on how bad the song is or good it is. No, I got to be honest. I don't care. If I like it, I like it for my reasons. And like Ian says, how can you tell somebody how to look at something and be an artist? No. So you're basically contradicting your own beliefs. If you know what I mean. It's like, as a musician or artist, there's no way you could tell somebody how to look at something.
Absolutely right, Mike. I mean, every song has kind of an emotional energy to it. It's got a flow. It's got it says a lot without even saying anything, without even speaking a word. For example, a lot of the, I love Rammstein. I have no idea what the fuck they're saying half the time. But I love the music and I jam to it. I listen to it while working around the yard or going for a run or whatever. And it's so that's a perfect example of where the lyrics are there. And they have a certain energy to them and emotion to them, but I have no idea what they're saying, Right. So maybe one day I'll learn German, I think I have to learn Spanish first.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, and this is kind of a corny song, but it's still kind of along the same lines of what you're talking about. That Gangnam Style by Psy.
Oh God.
He sings it almost entirely in Korean, But if you translate the lyrics into English, it doesn't make a fucking lick of sense.
Of course,
Like,
it's yeah.
like none of the, like, in the English language, if you were to translate his song in the English language, none of the words structurally match up. Like, they don't form coherent thoughts.
Sure.
So
Makes you appreciate how they use the Rosetta Stone to translate the hieroglyphics.
And if you listen to a lot of bands, like for example, one of my favorite bands is Breaking Benjamin. I think they have their songwriting's abilities are, but they have a formula that they follow and it works really well.
Mm-hmm.
And if you listen to their lyrics, they're almost the same lyrics in every song, kind of
By the way,
twisted around and worked back in, and you know what, you wouldn't know if you really listen to the lyrics in a band like Breaking Benjamin, you would see an intersection of some of the same lines repeated over and over again.
Right.
But you don't really notice those because you're just listening to the overall formula of the song, and
Did you hear their new song with the girl from Flyleaf?
Yes, really good.
I love it.
Yep,
it's amazing.
The whole album, they have a new album of all like acoustic kind of laid back songs. It's great.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna actually ask for clarification there. Do you mean the original lead singer of Flyleaf, Lacey?
Lacey.
Yeah, Lacey actually left Flyleaf about 4 years ago, and then they had some really weird redhead that didn't last very long, and now the band just doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it sounds amazing. You gotta check it out. It's really good.
I definitely will, because I love Lacey's voice. I will listen to anything Lacey puts out. Being, for me, I mean, obviously music in and of itself is, something that evokes emotion, but me, I'm kind of a little bit more heightened emotion when it comes to certain things. So I have what my friends like to call connection, or what is it? I don't know. I'm not going to find the right word because I want to find the right. But in any case, I will instantly connect with somebody, but I have a hard time disconnecting from somebody. Like if I like connect to them hard, it's like it's hard for me to kind of let them go. And in the vein of music, like we're talking, have you ever had a point in your life where there was a song that you heard and you loved the song, and for some reason it reminded you of somebody specific, but at the same time, at some point in your life, something between you and that person soured, and then you couldn't stomach listening to the song? Like, is it something that we knowingly do, attributing a song to a certain person, or is it just an emotional response?
Listen, I one of my favorite all-time songs I didn't listen to for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I buy a Journey tune. I ain't gonna get into it, but yeah, I just started listening to it again, man.
Yeah. So. But like, do we knowingly connect it to a certain person, or is it just something that happens? Or like, did you like willfully connect it to that person, or did it just of like out of like, did it just remind you of them?
It willfully connected. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of songs have a connection, almost like a smell,
Mm-hmm. And when you connect a song to a certain person, and then things sour with that certain person, the song starts to smell like sour milk, or South Street.
Yeah, that's true. That sounds.
Yeah, I mean, there are songs too that are very, they're very difficult to listen to now because, and that's one of the great things about music is that it doesn't just exist on its own. Just like, it's different for me with visuals. Like if I see I don't know, a building that reminded me of a time in my life, I don't get that same emotional kind of reoccurrence as if when I hear a song. Like when you hear a song, it'll bring you back to something that happened right around the time you first heard that song, or what it felt like to be alive at that time, or what you were going through. Just it's almost like a smell. I don't know how else to describe it. Like to this day, if I smell like a Kool-Aid mix or something, it takes me back to like 1985. When my mom made a big thing of Kool-Aid and brought it out to us when we were playing outside. Just an instant connection to my brain, and I recall these memories that it'd be hard to bring up otherwise. So I mean, if I start losing my mind, Mikey, this is play me some music, because I might start remembering shit.
Yeah, and look at it. I mean, yeah, and they have instances of people with Alzheimer's and things like that, and advanced dementia. They start playing songs, they remember the words. They put a piano on for this pianist, the jazz pianist. He was sitting in a chair. He was nonverbal. He started playing. One-handed, he started playing melodies, and it's just music has that connection. It gets deep inside of you.
There's a song, I don't know, it came out a few years ago. Obviously, you guys are old enough to remember Donny and Marie Osmond.
Yeah.
Marie Osmond came out with an album a few years ago, and one of her songs that I actually really like, it's called Music is Medicine. And I think that encapsulates exactly what music is, because I think more than anything else, I think music has this very strange healing quality to it. And regardless, because it allows you to connect to it individually, so you heal in the way that you're supposed to, that helps you.
Well, that's what I mean. It's just the individuality of it. I mean, that's getting back to where you're saying, if an artist that writes a song says you should interpret this song this way, I mean, you can't. How do you do that? You can't. I mean, it's all about how you individually see it and how it makes you feel.
I mean, if you have, like, if there was a something I did with one of my cousins a couple months ago. I asked her to give me a list of 5 songs that, if she and I did not know each other and we were just meeting for the first time, I asked her to give me 5 songs that would help me get to know her. And it actually worked.
That's cool.
Like, there were things that I hadn't known about her that I started to understand because of the songs that she sent me. And I think that, it's okay for, obviously, somebody to have one specific reason for writing a song. But I think that I think you have to allow for the listener to interpret it their own way and connect to it themselves before they can understand it from your perspective. Because I think they have to understand it in their own way before they can understand it in somebody else's way.
That makes sense. Sure.
As far as, your earliest memories of listening to music, and maybe what made you want to start playing, what were some of your earliest influences, and throughout, time, have your influences changed?
Ian, you want to start this one? I can't hear you.
I can't hear you.
Oh, look at that. See, I'm trying to be polite and ride the microphone so you don't hear all the wind and stuff.
Right.
So,
listen, as he's talking, I got to take a break for just a second. I drank a huge coffee. I'll be right back.
All right. We'll see you in a few, Mikey. Okay. So, yeah, I guess I have the floor, right? So anyway, I have some of the same influences now that I did back when I first started playing. One of my first influences was Pink Floyd, because I was a pianist, keyboardist, and I really appreciated the synthesizers, and some of the earliest synthesizers were used in Pink Floyd, and and obviously some of the the obvious ones like Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin. I had I had a little bit of interest in the Beatles when I was maybe in my like 11 years old or something like that, because the songs were all really easy to play on the piano. But then growing up, I mean, through the '80s, there are so many bands that influenced me. I mean, I really got into metal with Metallica, very similar to Mikey. Metallica, Megadeth, Iron Maiden. Judas Priest. Judas Priest, a huge influence. Queensryche. Back in the day. That's some of the hair metal. I mean, I was really into some hair metal for a while. The Bon Jovis, the Cinderellas, the Poisons, and so. I got to say, like in terms of changing, when I was in the '90s, I hated the music. I thought the '90s music was absolute garbage, trash,
Really,
untalented. But you know what's funny? By the end of the '90s, early 2000s, I loved all the '90s music. I don't know what it was, and maybe it's because it was so different than from the '80s. I mean, there was you look at the '80s music, you had a lot of very talented players, right? Very talented guitar players, very talented singers, talented drummers. In the '90s, the talent didn't matter anymore. Most of the musicians in the really popular '90s bands were, let's face it, not very talented.
Yeah.
They were, they could play 5 chords. They couldn't solo on the guitar. The drum beats were just, AC/DC type beats, right? But the music writing, the songwriting was really good, and it spoke to a lot of people. And it's become an era of music that that I really enjoy listening to. In fact, Mike and I even joked around about starting a '90s cover band. So we like that era so much now. So Mike, I was just what you missed is I was just talking about how during the '90s I hated the '90s. It was weird because the musicianship dropped from like 10 to like a 3. The guitar solos went away. The singing was very diminished. There were very few bands that had a lot of talent musically in the '90s. Yet it was such a great era. I'm not saying there are no bands that had that. There were some great talented bands in the '90s, but you take the average lead guitar player in the '80s and compare them to the average lead guitar player in the '90s, it was like night and day. Same thing with the drummers, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So it was weird getting used to as a musician. So I didn't like it at the time, but and then the 2000s hit, and it was like the '90s music suddenly got lead guitar players again, good singers again, drummers again.
Yeah.
And it's just been a fun ride ever since. I mean, I like where music is right now. I feel like it's evolving in a way that's blending music. It's blending a lot of hip hop, a lot of rap is being blended into. That even started in the '90s as well, even the '80s to go back to like Aerosmith and them, but Beastie Boys. But you look at like Linkin Park, right? I think Linkin Park set the tone for how you do it right, how you take rap and metal and you mix them together and you make something really, really catchy.
Yeah. They wrote some unbelievably melodic songs.
Oh, unbelievable.
I think collectively, the fan base for Linkin Park, like overwhelmingly agrees that Meteora was probably their best album.
I'm a Hybrid Theory guy.
Yeah, I'd say those two, Hybrid Theory and Meteora. I mean,
oh yeah,
you can put those on rotation, and I don't care what mood I'm in. I'll come right around to be very happy.
Yeah, really cool stuff.
Because we are we're streaming both on Facebook and YouTube. I got to be careful how I say this so that the live stream doesn't get taken down. Mike, you already know this because I talked to you about it before, but my whole connection to Linkin Park was because when they released Hybrid Theory in 2000, my mom was going through a divorce from the guy that she was married to, and he was very mentally and emotionally abusive. And I up until that point, my understanding of what abuse was only physical. I didn't know that abuse could be mentally and emotionally. So I didn't know what the hell was going on. I just knew that I didn't like the environment that I was in. And without saying too much, I would say that they released Hybrid Theory at the perfect time, because they are the reason that I'm alive today, pretty much. And the fact that, we're into the third anniversary of Chester's passing, I'm still trying to figure out where my head is with that, because it was a hard pill to swallow to get that news. So when you talk about being very, very deeply connected to music, that I think that's some of the deepest connection that you can have.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
And like I was telling you last night, that's a connection that'll never go away.
Mm-hmm.
And Chester's immortalized through that. And he can rest easy knowing that you have that connection and it got you through that time. That's what I personally, that's what I feel about that.
Yeah. Trying to figure out where I want to go next with the next talking point.
Just let it rain, brother.
Well, you actually didn't get to answer the question that we were talking about, because I kind of interjected with the Linkin Park stuff. Ian got me off on a tangent about Linkin Park, so we didn't.
It's all right, man. It's all good. It's a good flowing conversation.
It's almost like it came full circle. It started with Linkin Park, and here it is.
Yeah.
But Mikey's got to talk about his influences.
My influences.
From either listening to music to what influenced you to start music, and do you have the same influences today, or have they changed over time?
I picked up a drumstick, like I said, watching my brother play air drums. Music was always in my house.
Mm-hmm.
And to be really honest with you, I loved the Animal on the Muppets when I was a little kid, and that's why I started playing. I'm serious. That's why I started playing drums.
No,
and my first favorite band, and my favorite band to this day, one of my all-time favorite is Journey. Like the early Journey records. I remember "Any Way You Want It" was one of the first songs I loved as a little kid.
Yep.
My brother had the tapes, the pre-Escape tapes. I listened to all of it. And then as I got older, I collected all of it. And I think that's why I have an ear for melody. But I mean, I'm a huge, the One video changed my life when I was a little kid. I just got my first drum set, and the Metallica One video, just the raw energy and emotion. And I've been hooked ever since. And James Hetfield's one of my biggest influences, songwriting, music, some voice. I love other bands. I love a band called Life of Agony. I'm a huge Rush fan. I like a band called King's X, and I ZZ Top. I love blues. So it's just, there's a lot of everything. But I got to say, Journey and Metallica are my two main bands I still listen to this day. And I guess that sculpted me as a musician, drumming wise and singing wise. I love Killswitch Engage, modern stuff. I can't. There's certain bands now that I just don't. The visual bothers me a little bit, like a band like Avatar. Like I can listen to Avatar, but I watch them. I'm like, what the hell are these guys doing? But at the same time, I love Ghost.
Yeah.
So how do you can't really explain. It's just about what grabs you.
I actually, both of those bands I actually started listening to this year. I had never heard of them until this year. They're all right. They're fun to listen to, kind of as background noise. But I'm sure that if I listened to them more intently, that I would probably connect with them in some way, or at least understand them on another level.
Well, and this is getting back to the issue with lyrics as opposed to music. Like I'm not an overly religious guy, but I'm Catholic, and I pray and I go to church. But I mean, Ghost. I mean, their shtick is he's a saint. It's Satanist. And I connect to some of their lyrics on a different level.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So
yeah,
it's not what I believe, but I still love the melody, and I love where he goes with it, and I like how he puts things together. So. It's just how you feel about it.
Has with the things that you do, because obviously, would you guys would probably both say that music is kind of more of a hobby? Would you say it's more of a hobby, or is it something that you could see, you know, becoming what brings in your income?
I think that ship has sailed. I think
Yeah.
when I retire from teaching, and God willing, I could still play. I'm gonna move somewhere warm where I can play in cover bands. You know, for as a source of income to supplement my retirement. You
Yeah.
know, I would love to do
Because
something like that.
the next question I see on my list is, or that I had, um, has music in any way inspired or motivated you to accomplish things in your everyday life outside of the music world?
I think music's taught a lot of us. I mean, I don't want to speak for Mikey, but for me, it's taught me discipline because and that's affected me quite a bit. I mean, sitting down and having to learn a classical music piece, but so that your music teacher doesn't kick your ass for not practicing. You
Mm-hmm.
really learn some discipline, and to play in a band, you really have to practice. You have to show up to practice on time,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to have your homework done. And you have to work together. You know what I mean? There's just you have to maintain your instruments. I mean, there's a lot going on there that teaches responsibility and discipline that I think I learned at a young age, and it helped me out with my life. But music is not, it technically is a hobby because I'm not really making money doing it, really.
Mm-hmm.
But I almost see my job, my current employment, as a hobby, and I really wish music were my main source of income. I mean, I've been doing a
Yeah.
lot of recording lately and a lot of production work, and I really enjoy it. And if the opportunity hit, I would happily jump ship and do that for the rest of my life because they say do what you love,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll never be bored. And
Yeah,
I love what I do music wise. I mean, I love my job, but music wise, I mean, there's nothing like it.
I
Yeah.
agree. I agree. And personally, I mean, I never thought in my life when I was in my early 20s I'd sing in a band. I mean, you got to be kidding me. So that in itself was something that I thought I'd never do. And
Mm-hmm.
and like Ian said, you need to have a certain camaraderie and a brotherhood to be able to play in a band and stay together.
Mm-hmm.
You learn how to respect people. You know, you like you respect people for what they bring to the table. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Everybody brings something different to the table, and you need that. You need that respect, and you also need the contrasting personalities to blend together and hold everything together. You know,
Mm-hmm.
somebody's got to
Um,
steer the ship. Somebody's got to be the engine. Somebody's got, you got to have a little
well,
bit of everything.
when you're in the vein of being a local cover band, do you think that um, the the officials in charge of the area that you're in kind of dictate how successful you are? And by that I mean I've been out of New York for going almost 7 years, and from my understanding is South Street in Glens Falls has gone to absolute shit because there's really nowhere to perform. And I'm curious, you know, how something like a revitalization of the area affects, you know, being able to perform like you guys do. Like I know in Glens Falls at least, I only knew you guys to play at Hot Shots, and that's where a lot of the harder bands played. So when Hot Shots went belly up because of bad business, um, I was crushed because a lot of the bands that I became close to had to kind of disperse. So what is the way that an area is run? What does that do for like local talent.
Well, I do have to say, regardless of what happened at Hot Shots, the Maholics treated us as good.
Oh yeah,
they're amazing to us, you know.
yeah,
And I talk to Nick every once in a while and Sasha. They're great. I really appreciate what they did for us.
yeah.
I mean, they were great to us.
I still have my Hot Shots staff T-shirt.
I do too. I sported it once. We didn't play for a bunch of years. We did a show for Mike the Enforcer, and I wore it to show some respect. But
do you remember when they had the Hot Shots block party on South Street?
We weren't part of that. Yeah, no, we weren't part of that.
But you know what I'm talking about, though.
Yeah, I've seen pictures. Yeah, for sure.
I wish that they would have done that more often.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's they got your permits and stuff.
Yeah.
But you know, as far as officials, I mean, if I was a bar owner, I'd hire whoever because that's rock and roll.
Mm-hmm.
You know, rock and roll's got to win.
Yeah,
you know? Maine can lay more intelligent of an answer to that.
Yeah.
No, you got to invest. You know, you got to invest to make to make it, and if you can invest in you know, local music, to you know, it'll bring in a crowd. I mean, you know, Mikey and I think can attest to the fact that when, you know, for any local band that wants to, you know, get out there and have a serious following and have fun, you know, it takes a lot of work. You don't just practice a bunch of songs in your basement and then show up at a bar and play. There's a lot of behind the scenes work that's done, and you got to establish relationships with all the club owners. And I think for the most part, there are a couple goofballs along the way, but for the most part, we had a really good relationship with the club owners. And some of them were even friends, you know. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that having that friendship established, you know, helped us get in the door, helped us, you know, get respect, and you know, we were always very professional. As much fun and crazy as we got, we're always very professional. We always showed up, you know, on time with the sound, you know, everything ready to go. Somebody at the door, you know, everything was all taken care of. You know, very well organized. Then we just had a lot of fun. But yeah, you know, music could really revitalize an area, or, you know, and in the case of Glens Falls, it's unfortunate. I was just there. I don't remember why, but a couple of years ago, and it was very sad driving down South Street because it was a shell of what it used to be. I think there's still one bar operating there that I think we played there once. Mike,
we played at JP's once.
Yeah. But not the same scene.
No. Ian, do you remember? I'm not going to mention the bar, and I'm not going to mention the guy. But we used to do a deal where we took $300 from the bar, which basically paid for our door guy to collect money for us, sound and lights, you know, and we paid our drummer a little more, who had the trailer and heated the gear and everything. So that took care of that, and we played for the door. Well, we crushed it the first time we played here, and then this place, and then the next time it was right in our own backyard. The guy wanted to give us a flat rate, which was less than what we would have gotten otherwise. So we hemmed and hawed, and we said, all right, whatever. Because honestly, the last couple of times we went to the place, there wasn't that many people there. So we had a decent night, and the guy tried to finagle us. So AJ and Ian talked to him. I come over there, and he's like, Mikey, blah, 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 blah. This guy doesn't want to give us some money. So he looks at me and he goes, if I give you all this money, we're probably not going to be able to work together again. And I just put my hand out. I said, okay, man. And I put my hand out like that. Remember that, Ian?
Yeah, that was great.
Okay, man.
That was great. And I also remember a time where we left the show in the middle of it. We just packed up our shit and left, and you know, because of being disrespected, and you know, but those are just few and far between. I mean, Mikey, I would say we probably played 200 shows, and these are like maybe 2 incidents where, you know, there was an issue with something going on. I mean, you know, bars and really need to invest in local music, good local music, and appropriate local music. I mean, you know, we are not appropriate for most clubs, right? I mean, you know, you're not going to see us playing at, like, you know, Glenn Sanders Mansion or something, you know, or over at you know, the local church, you know. But we you know, there are most bars that can fit a crowd, and you know, could tolerate some heavy music, you know, and it helps the clubs out a lot.
what is that hotel in Bolton Landing? Is it the Sagamore?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I've been there.
I don't think we're gonna get booked there.
No.
But and I'm worried now with what's going on now with the COVID situation. Like, even when bars reopen, I mean, we're losing bars in our own area and we're losing places in our own area. But what's going to happen when they reopen? They're going to be able to afford to have bands. They're going to be, who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows with the social distancing thing going on? I mean, there's a lot of variables right now that we're pretty unsure about. And
actually,
it's kind of scary.
You touched on the next point I was going to approach, because I want to get your thoughts on, performing in the era of COVID. And also I want to get your thoughts, being that both of you are educators, I want to get your thoughts on teaching in the era of COVID or post-COVID.
Yeah, I get asked every day, and we're still not really sure what's happening in regards to school next year. I'll do whatever they tell me to do. I mean, I really don't know what to believe. I definitely want to err on the side of caution.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know where it's going to take us. I let the people that are important enough to make that decision and put faith in the fact that they do us right.
Because I know down here in Virginia, they just released the plan for what they want to do come fall. And they call it an AABB schedule.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically kids who are designated to an A schedule will go to school on certain days, and then kids that are designated to the B schedule will go to school the opposite days. It's like that seems to me like it would cause absolute chaos.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. There's a lot of variables.
And Mike has even less guidance than I have. I mean, I'm in higher ed, and we're part of phase 4 opening in New York, and so there are some guidelines released as to what we can do and can't do. So we're bringing students back to campus in the fall.
Cool.
They're going to be allowed to live in the dorms and everything, but in the classrooms we have to maintain social distancing and masks in the hallway, and we got to do. We're making staircases one way and stuff. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of really complicated things going on. So it's hard enough to get ready and teach your class and then deal with your class. I know Mike has a lot more going on inside the classroom than I would. But imagine dealing with all the prep, the discipline, the parents, the grading, the administrative work as it is, and now you have to do it under a very strict set of guidelines that make it tough to even conduct a class. I mean, pedagogically taking a class and just cutting it in half and teaching half this day and half that day, it just doesn't always work. So it's going to be a challenge for a lot of us.
Yeah. One of the things I don't understand is we're actually in what they're considering stage 3 of reopening, and they said that all establishments are allowed to be back at full capacity, but they have tables spread out 6 feet apart. It's like, how are you going to decrease the number of tables, but still say that you're able to accommodate the same number of people that you had before COVID? That's what confuses me. And like you guys were saying, as far as from the performance end of it, how can you balance those two, saying that you're allowed to be back at full capacity, but you have to maintain social distance? Like, I know obviously Hot Shots is no longer around, but there are small venues up there. How do you even manage social distancing in an area as small as Hot Shots?
Chicken wire.
Or you know what, you put shock collars on everybody, and when they get too close to each other,
that's just what I need. No, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. Like I said, there's a lot of variables, and we don't know when we're going to be able to start playing again. We were supposed to have a show Saturday. That's not going to happen. So hopefully August, we'll see.
What strings would I have to pull to get you guys to come down and perform here in Roanoke?
Hey man, I'm game.
I am game to do whatever, But again, it's like now we got we have 5 guys that all have different schedules, and I think Mikey and I, as busy as we are, seem to be the most flexible sometimes. So we can come down to 2 of us and do a duo, but
I can't
it's
play
tough to
guitar
get the other guys. Yeah.
Are you familiar with? I know they're not. I know that they don't go by this name anymore. A band that used to be called Capital Zen.
I'm familiar with that name for sure. Yeah.
Okay, there was one of the, I think he was the bassist for Capital Zen, Scott Hannay. He's actually been down here in Roanoke with his band Mr. F, and they've actually played locally down here. And I can't even tell you how great it was to have somebody from up there come down here. And I guess Circe from
they go all over.
Yeah, they've come down here a few times. I haven't gotten to see them yet, but it's
nice people, by the way.
Really, I've never met them.
Nice people, yeah. Melody, they're very nice people. They make a lot of sound for 2 people too, by the way. It's only a 2-piece band. Oh yeah.
I don't know. I don't think I've ever asked. And honestly, Ian, I didn't know until Mike told me that you were also an educator. But Mike, I don't even know if I've ever asked you what age range you teach. But I'm curious, as educators and musicians, you have a unique connection to spoken word. And I'm curious, and you also have the ability to influence younger generations. So I'm curious, in the social times that we're facing, where there's a lot of confusion and there's a breeding ground for young people to develop depression and anxiety, what sort of message do you want to send to students of this era and, future educators on how to deal with improvising a situation like this, or improvising a situation where depression and anxiety are affecting, a younger generation?
You want me to go? I personally, I think that in the times we're in right now, I think it's okay. I'm confused sometimes, so I think it's okay to let kids know, especially young, impressionable minds, that it's okay to be confused. It's okay to hurt. But try to find goodness and try to be kind through it. I mean, I don't know if the answer is to fix all the social unrest right now. I just wish that we could be better communicators and just try to understand each other a little more. And if I could have a message, I say it's okay to be confused, but I also try to tell them that, you don't know what the person sitting next to you is going through, so try to approach their situation with as open of a mind as you want somebody to approach yours. We all want to be understood, so try to understand other people too. I mean, that's probably the best way I can explain it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
As far as future educators, what would you tell them, in dealing with, their own stuff? Like, would you tell educators and kids the same thing, you think?
I would tell educators that that's a tough question. I would tell somebody getting into the field that you have to be as open-minded as possible, and also you can't take yourself too serious. You can't take things too personal, because kids are going to lash out at you, and you have to understand where that lashing out is coming from.
Yeah, you have to have a thick skin, I would imagine.
Yeah, and it's hard not to take things personal, because I get FUs, and it's hard. I'm serious, and I teach 6th grade kids, and they don't mean it.
Yeah.
Some kids do, I'm sure, but they don't mean it. Kids want to be cared for, and I would just say that let the kids know that you care about them, but sometimes caring about somebody is, you have to play the heavy. It's a very versatile thing. You can't approach every situation the same.
Yeah.
So it's a tough thing, but my main thing would try to understand where somebody's emotion is coming from. You have to know the whole person, not just their behavior.
Does an adult have does an adult have to remember what it's like to be a kid
Oh,
to be
every
able
day.
to be able to understand what they're going through emotionally?
That's one of my things I say all the time. Like, I was sitting in your chair, and it seems like yesterday. I've been teaching for 20 years now, and I still feel like I was sitting in that chair. Like, I can't sit still. I can't, I totally understand. I try to tell them that and let them know that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Ian, what do you got to say?
Well, I was going to say, you asked about depression, anxiety, kind of the mental health. You touched on that. We see a lot of that coming right up through higher education. We have more. This is not just the institution I'm at; it's across the country. We're seeing a real mental health crisis, and I think that my own opinion. This is my opinion. This is not fact. But from what I've seen, has changed the most in the last 10 years as the mental health crisis has gotten profoundly worse in the last 10 years. Really, it's the growth of social media and overusage of phones. I think when you have nothing to do, you worry about everything, right?
Yeah.
If you're on your phone all the time, you really have nothing to do, right? But if you're really busy, you don't really have time to be worrying about everything, So I encourage students as much as possible to put down their phones, get out and do something. Go outside and do something outside. Go to a museum. Go listen to music. Get together with your friends, socially distanced, of course. Just get out and do things. Don't just sit there alone in your room with phone in front of you for hours and hours on end. Because naturally that's going to cause someone to become depressed. I mean, you talk about anxiety and, what we're dealing with now, in light of recent events, I think Mike touched on it the best. We're not communicating well. We need to improve our communication. When we're always like this, sometimes you have to have that conversation. You have to look at somebody in the eye and have a real conversation and be open and honest, be respectful. I think a lot of what we see going on right now is just there's a lot of emotion. There's not a lot of respect. There's just a lot of emotion. And there's some real issues out there, but I think that they're being confused because we're not communicating properly about them. And everything's being politicized. One of the worst things that has ever happened to this country is the politics. I mean, I love democracy, and I don't want to go off on a tangent with this, but the fact that every single issue has to be politicized is just absolutely tearing the country apart, and it's frustrating. So.
I'm actually glad you brought that up. First off, I do kind of want to veer off the beaten path just a little and pick on Mike because you made the remark about I've been in your chair before. Let's just tell everybody how close you came to being in my chair.
Well, I don't know if Ian remembers this, but we were playing Hot Shots, and I might have had a couple too many. I mean, we used to get there a little early, and I like Jameson. And we were doing a song. I believe it was a Korn song, the beginning of Blind, I think it was, or Falling Away From Me. And I'm getting into it. Well, I lost my balance, and I came within. I was going down, and I just caught myself last second, like on my foot before I fell right into his chair. Like I almost took him right out. And I was like, man, I'm so sorry. And he goes to me right just like this. And he said something like this. Can I say what you said? You remember what you said to me?
I was probably drunker than you, so I don't remember.
He goes, what are you going to do? I'm already crippled, he goes to me. And I'm like, oh, man. I didn't know whether to laugh, cry, shit, or whatever, man. But I was like, I laughed afterwards. It was like, Ian, I put on the air brakes. I almost killed him. I almost took him right out. It would have been bad. And you know how it goes. I fall down once a show.
Yeah.
Huh?
I said, Mikey does not fall lightly. There's a couple of times he's going to get back up again.
I almost broke my ribs one time at Tumbleweeds. Remember that? When I caved myself over the monitor? Oh, God.
I remember breaking up fights in the middle of a show, but still singing.
Oh, yeah. I got punched in the face at Backyard Jack's. I ended up in the hospital. Yeah. That was a good day.
What kind of as an aside, what is I'm sure I don't know if it would be the same or individual, but what is the best and worst gig you guys have ever had?
Oh, I'll let Ian go first. I got a couple in my head. I got a couple good ones.
Worst gig, I think there is a show, and I don't want to say it was the worst gig, but it was highly inconvenient. We were playing a show, and let's just say let's say the bar owner got a lot of hand, and we had to so we just decided to stop the show. Packed up, left, and then we went to another bar where another band was playing and told the whole crowd to come with us. So I don't want to say the worst. It was the worst show maybe that we played, but it was not the worst night because we show up to this place. There's this band playing, and they had maybe 8 people there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to comment on the band. I don't want to be too judging, but 8 people was a pretty good crowd for them. And then all of a sudden, about 200 people come storming in the door.
Yeah.
This band didn't know what the fuck to do. They were like, "What just happened?" Because another bar owner pissed off our whole crowd, and the whole crowd left and went to the other bar, and it's like, "Holy crap!" And we were getting up there and singing them, and it turned out to be a great night, but it was probably one of the worst shows, I guess, because we didn't really get a chance to play.
Yeah.
We had, thanks to Mike, remember Mike the Enforcer? We played. We got to play Edge Fest one year. We opened up Edge Fest, and that was pretty cool at the Altamont Fairgrounds. But I have to agree with Ian about the worst show. That was interesting.
Yeah,
that was pretty interesting. We emptied the place out, and we left in about 20 minutes. I never packed up so fast in our lives. So that was probably the worst experience, But I gotta say, everybody pretty much behaved themselves at our shows. And like I said, we had a big family going from place to place. And if there ever was trouble, like maybe 2 or 3 times, it was always an outsider.
Yeah.
And we were very fortunate over the years. Very fortunate over the years.
If you can remember, I mean, like I said, this was going back 10, 15 years ago. Are there any bands from the local scene from around that era that you can remember that you would have liked to have played with but didn't get a chance to?
Like as like a show together?
Yeah, like Cell 213 or Standing 8 Count or Citizen Red even.
Yeah. Well, a lot of our material was similar to those guys, so we'd have to sort out the set list. But we did shows with Cell. I love Stevie Mulholland, the bass player. I love him to this day. He moved to Florida, and we did a Metallica cover band we played in together called Damage Inc. I played drums. He played he played bass. And my buddy Mikey Vergona sang and played guitar. And another buddy, Timmy Veneros, was the lead guitar player. Who's unbelievable, by the way. He's in Nashville now, in a band called True Villains, doing really well. Standing 8 Count was great. I would have liked to have done a show like we always talk about, even to this day. I mentioned Max Violet and Madhouse. Would like to do a show with them. I mean, they'd be like they're more 80s. I think that would work out good. 10-Year Vamp would have been a good whole bill with us. We did a show with Poor Dead Molly recently that we were trying to throw together for years. That was awesome. I don't know if you remember those guys, but they're awesome too. We had a blast with them.
Unfortunately, it's very sporadic that I remember bands from up there. I think maybe I just drank too much before the age of 25. So a lot of my bar experiences are no longer, registered in my memory. Ian, I don't know if you heard the question I asked Mike. Going back to like about maybe 10, 15 years ago, if there was a band up there that you could have played with, who would it have been?
I think we played with all the bands that I really wanted to play with. I think we did, we really did a lot. We had some friends and a bunch of bands that would either open for us or we'd open for them. We did some benefit shows where we played with other bands. I think we pretty much had the opportunity to play with every band I wanted to play with.
We did a show them 16 at that place. It was awesome. That was a good time. Remember that?
Yep.
That was cool.
So I think we really did get out there, and I think it just speaks to the fact that we were always very supportive of other bands, and wanted to help them out as much as possible. There's a lot of bands we helped out and some other bands that helped us out. Like there's some bands that were just new and they're looking to get a show, and we listened to them and thought they were really good. So we would go talk to the club owner who we already knew and say, look, trust us. This is a good band. Bring them in. And and other bands would do that for us. So we ended up, I think, playing with just about every band I could think of.
Yeah.
The
last thing I want to touch on is kind of twofold, because I do think that in the times that we're in right now, it is important to kind of get a wide variety of perspectives out there. One of the videos I was watching before I connected with you guys was talking about, they specifically said racism in metal music, in the metal music world, talking about how certain metal fans are very racist toward certain people. And this guy was reading comments in his comment section on his videos from metalheads, and the statements were very overtly racist. And I know that we spoke before we went on stream that, we wanted to try and approach the Black Lives Matter kind of angle of it very carefully, but as much as music has the ability to bring people together, do you think that either the music or the fans that it attracts can have the unfortunate ability to divide as well? Because I know that I've heard over the years, and I don't know if you guys can, if you guys have any more information than I do. The one band that I always hear when they talk about being very overtly racist or white supremacist, I guess, is Five Finger Death Punch. Is there any truth to that band being white supremacist, or any of their music being white supremacist driven?
Well, if you take a look at what Ivan Moody wears on stage right now, and how bad their music has gotten, his opinion means nothing to me. You know what I mean? So regardless, I can't speak upon it because I don't have anything beyond their first album, which was okay. But as far as me, I mean, there's ignorance in every realm of life. And I don't think there's going to be ignorant metal fans. There's ignorant country fans, obviously. There's ignorant, in every genre of music, there are ignorant people.
Yeah.
And, I can't speak upon how it makes somebody that's being oppressed feel, because I can't imagine what people go through, and I can't even pretend to. So, I mean, I believe it, yes, but I find ignorant people they don't mean anything to me. I just can't. I don't want to be a part of it, and I don't care.
One of the things that I believe we were talking about off stream was how I wish people would refer back to, early protest music. And as far as like the Black Lives Matter stuff, I really wish that they would embrace the more activist type songs that Michael Jackson did.
Sure.
Black or White, Earth Song, Heal the World. They don't really care about us. We are the world. I mean, we are the world. But are there any songs that you can think of in modern times that are activist type songs that are effective and that are not divisive at the same time?
Jeez, I mean, that's tough. I mean, I don't, I listen to a band called 24/7 Spies, and I don't know if you've ever heard of it. They got an album called Strength in Numbers that has a couple songs. There's a song called Crime Story that's in the early 90s that spoke about police brutality, and it's so relevant today. And then they got another song that's got a reggae feel that just speaks of social issues about, it's unbelievable. And the only white guy in the band was a drummer. They're fantastic. They're based out of New York City. Jimmy Hazel's a guitar player. And just check that album out. That was the early 90s. That's the first one that comes to mind for me.
What about you, Ian?
You might have to repeat the question because it cut out for a second.
I'm curious as far as what we're seeing with the Black Lives Matter stuff, when when all of us were talking off stream about, kind of referring back to the older protest songs and how the artists approached them. Do you feel like people need to refer back to those, or are there songs in the current industry that are effective enough to bring about change without alienating another group of people?
Well, yeah, that's a tough question, but you got to look back. I mean, look at the 60s and early 70s music in Woodstock. I mean, you talk about peaceful protest and power of words. You look at any of those bands. You couldn't. It's hard. You'd be hard pressed to find a song that wasn't somehow protesting the war, or the government, or unequal treatment of people. I think a lot of those songs are true today. I mean, there's songs throughout the 80s and 90s that put down police brutality or bad politicians. I mean, you look through, and it's like we still have some of the same issues now that we've had for like 40, 50 years. So I don't think that music is going to change that at all. I think that people need to change that, and communities within themselves need to change that. I mean, it's very common when when you hear a story like what just came out in the news, everyone gets really riled up, and one group of people gets mad at another group of people. But you got to look holistically. I mean, at some of the problems that we're facing as well. I mean, people are getting discriminated against for all sorts of different things. I mean, for example, I grew up a stutterer, a really bad stutterer. I was not treated properly or discriminated against. I mean, I remember my first couple job interviews, I was almost laughed out of the room. But the black populations had a really a poor has not really been respected to the level at which they should have been for a very long time. And I think that we've seen it over and over again, and enough's enough. I mean, you can't argue with what the protesters are protesting.
No, absolutely
even
not.
Even though I do argue with the methods. I mean, I don't understand how killing 20, 30 people, including children, really gets the point across that killing people's wrong. That to me is confusing. But I think we need to also look at, there are people who, there are Hispanic people who've been abused by police, disproportionately. I mean, there's just a real problem, and I think it's time we actually do something about it instead of singing about it, writing songs about it, even saying we're going to do something as a politician. I think we actually have to take some action, because enough's enough. Sorry, I'm rambling on and on and on.
Well, no, you actually bring up a good point as to what my next question was going to be. Do you think or for both of you, I want to know, what's more important, the message or how the message is conveyed? Because
it's all about. Oh, sorry.
Pure, and the reason I say that, and because of what Ian said, we need to stop writing songs about it and talking about it. Do we though? Or is somebody, because I think people receive messages in different ways. So do we need to curate the message better, or do we need to curate the delivery method?
I wouldn't say that we should stop writing songs about it, but that's not enough, is what I'm saying. Like we could write songs about it all till the day we die. It's not necessarily gonna change, because we've been listening to songs that have been promoting the same thing the protesters are since for 50 years, right? If you listen to some of the lyrics, it's got people thinking, But what we need is actual change. So I think if there's a way for that message to turn into action, absolutely. But again, I mean, if we keep writing songs about it, it's not enough. We need that, which is great. It's a great way to express it, but it's not enough. We need to actually do something, you know?
Maybe it's that we need to find the right people, because I think it takes the right people to take action based on the message that they receive. So I don't think necessarily that we're focusing too much on writing about it. I think it's dependent upon the people to be motivated to take action. We need to convince them to take action. And that's why I said, does the message need to be curated better?
Whatever we're doing now isn't working.
Yeah,
exactly.
Something's broken, needs to be fixed.
Mm-hmm.
It pains me to see. We're 2020 right now, and it's worse now. Our social climate is worse now than it has ever been in my entire life.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it was when I was younger and I didn't realize it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, there's no empathy for it. Nobody has any empathy for anybody anymore. Nobody cares. It just seems like you read the news forums around here, and I can't believe what people are saying to each other. And it's on both sides. The conservatives are saying these things. The liberals are saying these things. And I just don't understand how nobody can see that neither one of you are going to get anywhere bashing heads like this. There's got to be some kind of, you have to meet in the middle. You can't deny that what's going on in these communities, it's wrong. The police brutality is wrong. But how many cops are the ones doing the abusing? I don't know if you got to collect more data. I mean, I don't know what the answer is, but something needs to be fixed. I mean, there's no doubt there's an issue, and in this unrest going like this, it's not going to do anything. It's not going to work.
No, it's not helping. It's not helping at all. I think that if anything, it's causing more harm at this point. I think that there you don't see too many people that would disagree with the message from the protesters. I think we all stood with them. I mean, it's but I think when it gets to the point of burning down businesses and killing people and creating tension for issues that may not actually be there all the time, really is it's destructive, and it's damaging society. And I think we need to take a step back and say, all right, let's do something. We've heard you. Let's do something. And I think some politicians are actually doing something. And I know in New York we've taken some action already. I mean, just from I think the protesters in New York have won. I mean, they've gotten their point across, and I think the governor, who I don't always agree with, but I think he's done a pretty good job responding. I mean, he's passed several new legislation for police reform. He's released the police records, which were kept private. Now police criminal records are now released. I mean, there's a whole load of things that are being taken care of. And all police departments have to redefine themselves. He's only given them, I think, like 180 days to come up with a new plan of operation. And it's got to include people from the community. The community have to tell the police department what police department is what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
So I think that conversation is happening in New York. I'd love to see it happen around the country, because like Mike said, the worst enemy of a bad cop are the 99% of cops that are good.
Yeah.
It's a tough job. I mean, being a police officer is a very, very tough job. I have lots of friends who do this. And there are police officers, black, white, Hispanic, male, female, you name it, that are getting shot. Their lives are getting put at risk every single day, more so now since the protests. So it's scary. And I think the worst thing you can do to the police that needs to get reformed is to defund them.
Yeah.
I think when you take money away, you need money to support change. When you take money away, you can't change. It's a contradiction. So I think police need to be supported, but they need to change, and they need money to do that. You can't take money away and say, oh, now hire people for training and I don't know. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I'm rambling, but and we're off the topic of music, but.
Oh, no. Like I think we needed to approach that, because we're talking about how, music can unite people, even if two people hear the same song, they can walk away from it having gotten a different message.
Sure.
But at the same time, they don't criticize each other because they both got different messages. So I think that talking about, the Black Lives Matter stuff, I think we both want the same thing, but we just have a different approach to it because we see it from a different lens. And I think that we need to find a collective way to put those lenses together and maybe see if the lenses can work, see if those two half lenses can work together. Because we need to start, how I don't know if either of you are parents, but how they say that parents have eyes in the back of their head. I think we need to, start developing eyes everywhere. Like, I think we need to start, engaging with our periphery.
Well, you have to listen with an open mind too, and then that's the thing too. I think that's what we're missing,
Anything else you guys want to put out there that you're doing? I mean, I don't know if anybody from up in, that neck of the woods will see this, but anywhere you guys are going to be, or anything you're working on for when all of this nonsense is over?
Oh yeah, we got stuff. Mike and I are recording. We're doing some live recordings with the Grin that we're going to release with some video,
Okay.
and just because we miss the people that we used to hang out with at our shows, so we want to at least put some kind of music back out there so people can listen to it. I also have a YouTube channel where I'm posting a lot of my own recordings in the studio, and I encourage people to check it out. I think you just Google Ian McDonald MAC. I think you'll find it. And Mikey, you want to tell them what's going on with you?
I'm actually, we were talking about stuff with other bands. One of my other buddies. We're doing some recordings, and we're throwing some stuff together. Our drummer Mumbolo, and my buddy from a band called Hungry Dingo, and I'm actually going to record some vocals today with Ian. And we're going to do that. And I also play drums in a classic rock band called Lights Out.
Mm-hmm.
That we had some steam going before this happened, and then we'll see what happens. Hopefully, we can get that going. They're actually, their fan base is more Syracuse way.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully, we get that going again soon. And I'm going to play a lot of golf this summer.
At the end of the day, I know they're two very different environments, but are you looking forward to getting back on stage and in the classroom?
I can't wait. Yeah, I mean, I absolutely. They're both different ways of performing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I enjoy going to work. I work with amazing people, and I get to play music with amazing people too. So
yeah,
it's a good situation.
Same. It's been very hard for me. I think like Mikey, I'm a social person. I don't just sit in my room and be happy just in isolation. Isolation is not something that's compatible with me. So I'm really looking forward to getting out and seeing people, seeing people's faces again. I love the people I work with. I love my job. I love the the musicians that I get to work with. It's a shame. It's a necessary thing, but I can't wait till it's over. I can't wait to get back out there.
Last thing for both of you, last question. What is one thing that you've learned about yourselves during lockdown?
Oh, man.
See, I wanted to have this discussion with the two of you because, like, I always think that when it comes to intellectual conversations, musicians have this unique ability to see the world like no other person is able to because they connect with it differently. So from, an intellectual perspective, from a musician's perspective, I'm curious, what you guys, or something you guys have learned about yourselves during this time.
I'm a lot more patient than I thought I was.
Really?
I thought I'd be going stir crazy, and which I am. And I got to be honest, when I've played golf my whole life, when they opened up Amsterdam Muni, our golf course, we could able to get out and play. That helped me a lot. But it's hard. You know, I learned that I can be by myself and be happy, because my wife worked all day. You know,
Mhm.
I worked at home, but you know, I could be by myself and be okay with it. You know, and I really, you know, I've always had a close connection with my parents, but I feel like we've gotten closer through this last 3 months. You know, I check on them all the time and make sure that, you know, they have what they need. And, you know, it's just, I learned that I was a lot more patient,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I also learned to just kind of appreciate some of the little things, you know,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
time. You know, time is something that I think I appreciate a lot more now than I ever did, because I have some time, some free time that I didn't have before. So I'm spending more time with my you know, parents, I have 3 kids, you know, and I'm also realizing that this is harder for them than it is for me.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's only, you know, for a week or so, I walked around bitching and complaining about how shitty the situation was and how I hated it and screw this mask and this and that, you know. But then I started to realize, you know, these kids were just ripped out of their schools. They're not going to see their friends. They're not going to graduate with their friends. They're not going to, you know, the clubs that they're in don't exist. The musical they're going to put forward was canceled. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's seeing, and suddenly they have to learn online as if they're like continuing adult education students, and they're in high school and middle school, and it's like, you know, it's very difficult for them. So I've really learned, you know, to appreciate the small stuff, and definitely to appreciate more time with the kids and the family, you know.
And actually, being that this whole, you know, the purpose of this series was to kind of pay tribute to Linkin Park. You just reminded me of probably one of their most famous lyrics. Um, I'm trying to get it right. Oh shit! Give me 1 second. I'm gonna search it out.
You guys don't make fun of me when I forget lyrics.
Yeah, and you
I
have
can
a
relate,
person in
man.
front of you.
As a matter of fact, Ian, that's what I got to do here. I'm going to be looking.
Oh, you gotta write it down.
No, I'm not going to write them. I just need a little gentle reminders for today.
um,
I also learned I spent a lot of money on alcohol.
Yeah, I regained my drinking powers. That's right.
there we go. There we go. I found it.
Right.
Time is a valuable thing. Watch it fly by as the pendulum swings. Watch it count down to the end of the day. The clock ticks life away. Yeah, and
Absolutely.
I think that we could really embrace that lyric and kind of start valuing time again. And I think once we value time, we'll start valuing the people that we spend time with.
I agree.
So,
Well said.
guys, this was absolutely the perfect way to start this series. I'm so glad I got to talk to you.
Thanks for having us,
And
man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to the end of the series. Well, I don't want to, you know, make time go faster, but when we do the end of the series, when I bring you guys back for the last episode, I'm looking forward to you know, seeing, kind of rehashing and seeing what we all think of the series and all that kind of stuff. So next time I am up in town, I will get a hold of you and maybe we'll meet for lunch.
Let me
Sounds
know,
good.
man.
Let's do
All
it.
right.
Let me know.
Love you guys. Be
Thank you,
safe.
brother.
Be
Be
safe.
safe,
Bye-bye.
man. Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
All right.
Peace, brother.